Hey, welcome to some PB time of the Christmas edition. It's Christmas Eve, and as we're preparing for festivities with the family and all those kinds of things, I'm really reflective, like many of you are, around this time of the year. And we're celebrating more than what Christmas tradition has become around Santa Claus and presents, and I don't criticize any of that at all. But at the same time, we have to remind ourselves that this is about the celebration of the Savior of the world coming. His name is Jesus, right? And we know that, and we celebrate that name. But names are a funny thing. And today I want to talk a little bit about how no one name can contain what you mean to people. When Jesus was being proclaimed and prophesied about becoming the Savior, Isaiah had a hard time just clarifying a single name that would be able to describe the coming Savior. Isaiah 9:6. It's a real popular verse. Many people know about it, but let me read it for you real quick. Isaiah chapter 9, verse 6, and it says, "For unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given, and the government will be upon his shoulders, and his name will be called." Now, catch that. His name will be called. What's his name going to be called? Well, we're going to call him Wonderful. We're going to call him Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. Now, there are a lists and lists of more names that describe who Jesus is. And for the longest time, I appreciated that verse, but I'm not sure I really understood it until I became a grandfather. And now we have three grandsons. TJ, there is Gus, and then there's Charlie. Three boys. They are all boy. I love them to death. And, I always say Teddy's done a good job giving us great grandkids. But no one of those boys can have one name that describes who they are. I have nicknames, multiple nicknames. I would take too much time here for you to hear all my nicknames. TJ, why do we call him TJ? Well, because he's William Theodore Simmons the fourth, and Teddy is the third, and we didn't call him Billy or Bill because my dad was Bill. I was Billy growing up, and I'm Bill now, and we didn't want another Bill, so we went by his middle name and we called him Teddy based on Theodore. TJ, Teddy Jr. So that was his nickname. Sometimes I'll call him Quattro because he's number 4. Sometimes I'll call him Solid because as he was, growing up as a toddler, he was just a solid boy. And sometimes I'll call him Goober because I just think he's a goober, and I'll call him Goober. Sometimes we'll go by William, and sometimes kids at school call him William. His mom calls him Will. There's no one name that can contain who we see him as in our family. Gus comes along. Gus stands for Augustus, and his middle name is Jordan. So honestly, we have a TJ and an AJ, and we sometimes will call him Augie or Gus Goober too, because I think he's the second grandson. He's a goober also, or as Renee loves to call him, Gus Gus. Sometimes I'll call him Dose because he's the second grand one. And I'll call him Solid too because he was solid as a toddler. Then there's Charlie. Charlie's a wild card, but he goes by Charles Joseph. So guess what? We have a TJ, an AJ, and a CJ. So there's CJ and Charlie. Sometimes we'll call him Charles in Charge. And if you remember some of that in old school sitcom, he is definitely a Charles in Charge. Sometimes I'll think of as Charlie Hustle or Goober the third, or Trey because he's the third grandson. So no one name can contain who he is. And Jesus is the same way. In Isaiah 6, it reminds us that no one name will be able to contain how amazing this child will be, that he will be called Wonderful, that he will be called Counselor, Mighty God, Prince of Peace, Everlasting Father. And so as we celebrate Christmas today, there is more than just a child being born that we celebrate. We celebrate the person of Jesus that is able to be more than we could ever think or imagine. And just like the people in our lives that have multiple names, Jesus also has more than one name to be able to help us recognize what he can do in our lives. So just remember that as you work through and celebrate Christmas with your family today.